kick off? Kia ora team, thank you very much for being here. Very frantic day and very strange times that we're in. And it was just really interesting noticing people coming in today. There was no eye contact, no how are you, it was just a real focus on this table. So there is an opportunity for each team to win today, and I hope the chocolate gives you a wee bit of a lift as well. So my intention is to be done by 4:15, 4:30 at the latest. And the other intention I have is to make sure that as much of this is experiential. I'm a recovering classroom teacher myself, and I know what it's like to sit on your ass for an hour and a half after doing a really hard day's work, just listening and wondering if we've got camp food or we're going to run out of coffee. So hopefully it'll be relevant to you. And because it's experiential, you'll go away a bit better, a bit more aware than maybe about some things than you currently are. As with anything, I really welcome questions at any time. You're not interrupting me, so if you've got a question, just blurt it out. There's no such thing as a stupid question. So, been working with Stella, and you are so lucky to have her, by the way. I work in so many schools, and they don't have a Stella. So you're really, really lucky to have her. And she's worked very hard in the last wee while to organise things, because you're very, very well provisioned in having more devices than any other school I have ever worked with in 15 years. But because you've got so many, they've become increasingly difficult to manage and to have consistency across them, and particularly when it comes to younger children using them, it's been a wee bit hit and miss at times. So Stella's done a lot to achieve that, and we'll talk more about that later. So the intentions of today is for people to get a better understanding about the difference between Chromebooks and MacBooks, not by me telling you, but by you experiencing the difference. We're also going to experience the difference between having documents submitted in a Google Classroom as opposed to being shared with the teacher. And we're also going to talk, because a large part of our direction this year and beyond is on scaffolding, differentiation and feedback, it would make sense for our infrastructure to be differentiated and to be scaffolded so that we've got multiple smooth on-ramps for our children, particularly those at the bottom, because as with everything that works well for them, it will work for everyone. We're also going to discover what a person's Google account actually contains. I think this is probably the biggest tripping point or misunderstanding that people have. So most people, regardless of whether you've got a Gmail account or a school account, most people think, well, that's where my mail is, it's where my calendar is, it's where my drive is, and it's where my YouTube stuff is, and maybe a couple of other things. But it's got a whole load of stuff that people aren't aware of, and that is your usernames, your passwords, your apps, your extensions, your bookmarks, all that sort of stuff. So in the same way that your mail is in your Google account somewhere up there, all that data is there as well. And from a child's point of view, that is something that we can really, really capitalize on. And what that means in the classroom is in one click, a child can instantly log into Mathletics or Sunshine Online or whatever the app is without having to type the password and username. Because it's just one of the cruel things of the world is the kids who are least likely to do that are the ones who most need to do it. And so a lot of what we've been doing and planning is to address that sort of shortfall and chasm. Does that make sense? Cool. And of course the other thing which I really, really enjoy seeing in the schools I work with is to see kids working much harder and for teachers to be working much less. And to be working in different ways. So one of the key things is that we're working together as a team, and alone we're smart, together we are brilliant. But a lot of that depends on consistency. Now I know you're just getting into PB4L, and that relies heavily on a consistent approach across the school, across people, even in the same team. You've got your mates agreement, you've got how we use Tadeo. There's all sorts of things that we are consistent about within the school. And what we're putting in place now are some ways of having some better consistency with outcomes when we use technology, and also with how the technology works, particularly for kids. Any thoughts or wonderings around that as a bit of a backdrop? Are you happy now? So what this means is that we're going to have kids with seamless experiences, more time creating stuff rather than looking at stuff, having students learning visibly accelerated. So you may well have heard of the SAMR model, where we've got substitution at one end and redefinition at the other. Substitution is just when we're doing exactly what we've done on paper, just on a device. It's largely pointless and takes more time. So the whole idea is to be using technology to do things that aren't possible just with paper, and again, particularly with a view to accelerating our bottom-end kids and extending our top-end kids. And what I see in other schools, and we're going to see here, is students completing much more work in much less time to a much higher standard. Just because a child is bright does not mean they're necessarily hardworking. And in a class where we've got a really wide bell curve and we've got some really challenging kids, they can be relatively quiet and passive while, you know, understandably we're dealing with some significant issues in our classroom. So there are opportunities to try and remediate that a wee bit. So one of the things that happens with people, regardless of what the tools are, whatever tools we've got, it actually shapes our behavior. So if, for example, instead of you all being teachers and your kids being students, if you were all running like building companies and the kids were out in vans every day with tools doing renos and building houses, what a thought that is. But if overnight you went from providing them with manual hammers, manual screwdrivers, manual saws, and overnight they got cordless skill saws, they got nail guns, and they got electric screwdrivers and all that sort of stuff, you're costing, your expectations of their work output would just go like that. And this is where the opportunity lies, because for many kids and many teachers in many schools, we haven't yet recalibrated our expectations. That's not our fault. Technology has changed really, really quickly. But when I see people sort of embracing these sort of opportunities, everybody wins. It's not whether we're using it, it's how we're using it. And that's where the real gains can happen. Because, you know, I was talking a wee while ago about scaffolding, differentiation, feedback. Those three things are great in theory. They're great in a teacher-only day. They're great in a quiet staff meeting like this. But in reality, in the old paradigm, they have all meant much more work for the teacher to scaffold stuff well, to differentiate stuff well, and to feedback and feed forward. That's the old paradigm. The new paradigm is where we can do those three things in a fraction of the time. And the work that we're actually looking at is of a higher standard anyway. So the amount that we have to double handle it and give endless feedback reduces. So the opportunity here is to change the system, not trying to change people. We're obviously changing our kids and improving them, but we need to change the system around that as well. In some, this is not meant to be you, Matt, so don't worry. In some schools I go to, there's a bit of a confusion behind what a great teacher is, and sometimes it's the geekiest person on the staff, and usually they're actually not the best teacher. Very often the best teachers we've got are here. And what I find is that if we can use technology really, really well, it just boosts all that amazing wisdom and experience and great practice that they've got. So this is about going from good to great, and about taking care of some of your workload along the way. You might remember we looked at this way back when we began our journey. We are now well and truly up in the pedagogy stage. We've left behind, do you remember back in the day we were using Safari, or we weren't saving our passwords, or we had our accounts in a tangle and we were using Word, all that sort of stuff, thank the Lord, is behind us now. And the gains that we've got from there means that we're now just focusing relentlessly on what's happening in our classrooms. So let's just make a bit of a start. So we got 4 tasks today. The last one is actually scored, so there's actually a number. And the team with the biggest number is the one that takes away all of this. I've got a sneaking suspicion there'll be a photo finish. So we've got a strategy for that, Kelsey. And that strategy depends on one person in your team. So each team will have a recorder who writes down your a bit of reflection after each task, and there's a document for that you're going to get. There is a timekeeper, because some of it is sort of against the clock. And you've also got an assessor, so someone who's going to mark your work. So in this group, it's Kelsey, if she's going to be here. Hopefully you'll be here. In this group, Matt will be marking your work. And here, I think, Ariana. So be nice to those three people if you want to get the marks. Does that sound good? So the very first thing we need to do is to very quickly appoint a recorder in each group. That's someone who just needs to write down a wee bit in the Google Doc as we go through. And for that person and that person only to go into Google Classroom. So I'll give you 30 seconds to choose someone. On your own devices, sorry. Yeah. So just while people are sorting that out, this is what the reporter will see. So you just name of your team, name of the reporter, and task 1, task 2. So we're not after essays here. We're just after very quick reflections about what we learned and what we discovered. So who's the recorder here? Phoebe, you're in? You got the document? And you got the document?
Not yet.
I think you were invited into the classroom. If you check your emails, there might have been an invite there. It says PLD. Get back to me if it's not there. Okay. So.
Teamwork.
No, it should. Oh, yes, that's the document. Yeah. If you open that one.
I'm not going to go on to it.
Yeah. It should say Ponga Teamwork.
Yeah,
It'll say Ponga Teamwork in there if that's what your team is. Wait, that one's there.
I'm trying to troubleshoot you for input.
I don't think she accepted the invite to the classroom.
did.
Oh, she did?
No,
Oh, right.
she did.
Oh, sorry, my bad. Then I didn't, because she hadn't accepted, I didn't put her in the right group. That's what happened. What team are you, Ange? Is it Ferns? Okay. I'll just change something here, and it'll be. So where's Ange? So it'll come up in just a minute, Ange. It'll come through in just a moment. Okay. So our very first task is to grab a Chromebook, please.
Is that each?
Yeah, grab a Chromebook each. And if you could work out odd, even. You're very odd, even, odd, even. So the so the odd people are going to sign in as Gus, and the even people are going to sign in as Zaver. Is that right? Zaver.
No, so you're Zava. I'm Gus.
Was I meant to be logging in as well?
Yes. Have you got a Chromebook? Oh, I've got a spare one here. Here we go.
Odd, so Gus is odd.
So I'll do 2021.
Anyone else need one? You all good? Right, so the intention here is that you just notice what happens, how quickly it happens, and think about, as you're doing this, think about the least able child in your class. How difficult is it to do these things for the least able child in your class? So hopefully, if you look at your neighbor's screen, you will see that they've got something different to you. The odd people's screen will look a bit different to the even people's screen. Are we seeing a bit of that? Yes.
Coming up, saying loading.
Yeah, it'll get there.
Sunshine posted sunshine online.
Coming up with a test that you're just going to come up
Okay, so it's working. And if
I'm just guessing.
if, for example, if you're signed in as Gus, if you got a study ladder, you will see that his username and password automatically appear, and he just goes straight in. Has anyone noticed that? So we've noticed that here.
So save it, and it will come up automatically. Because it's already
That's okay. Are you odd or even? Yeah, so just click on sign in.
Yeah, but he's a different name from up there.
That doesn't matter. Just click on sign in, and he will be straight in.
He's straight, yes, he's straight in.
Yeah. Okay, so the recorders should be listening and writing. We got 90 more seconds on this. So we should be discussing about what we've seen. What we should be seeing is tabs automatically opening. We should be noticing that passwords are automatically populating.
Yeah, the blue one. I've got the wheel of death. Me too.
Okay. Let's have a look. And so there should be a timekeeper working out the longest it takes to sign in. And so if you just click on that, Marie, just click on username. So you can see all the different tabs have automatically loaded. And for Gus, his username and password is loaded, so he's straight in.
How long did it take to sign in and out of the payment?
Right, how long did it take for us to sign in? Oh, wait a minute.
So you just, you press sign in. Yeah.
40 seconds left. Recorders should be listening and recording. We should have some reflection about how easy that was. That's if you've got time, yeah, just flip it over. But yeah, I don't think they will have time.
Oh, sorry, that's what you were
I know. I know. Not everyone is advanced as this group.
We're not advanced. We just
Not
want to
all
be
the
out of
baby
here
turtles
by-
make it to the sea. Okay. Right. We need to move on. We're just going to pull this together. So can we just have a bit of focus, please? If we leave the machines and think about this machine up here. So what this was a very, very rough demonstration of what's possible. So if, for example, a teacher in Room 8 wants one website to open automatically and to sign that child in, that can be done. It takes 30 seconds. If PJ wants 4 websites to open automatically for every child, that can be done. And if she changes her mind a week later, that's fine too. So what you're seeing in front of you will not be ideal literally for your class. It's just a demonstration that when different kids sign into a Chromebook, they get a different thing served up to them. And that is your decision as teachers. So if you speak to Kelsey or Stella or myself, we can make that happen really, really quickly. Does that make sense? Great. So we should have had a bit of reflection on that with our recorders, plus, minus, and interesting. Okay. Next thing, we're on to task 2, which is signing into MacBooks. So you can sign out of the Chromebooks, bottom right, sign out, bottom right, sign out of the Chromebooks, and then grab a MacBook and try and do the same thing. And just notice the difference between using a Chromebook and a MacBook and put... What's that, Marie?
They couldn't sell me because I still couldn't do it.
Okay, well, let's have a look and see what might have gone wrong.
Uses it.
What can you do?
Well, it just wouldn't sign it. So
Okay.
the password and the username didn't work. It didn't work. The
Okay.
QWERTY didn't work. Pretty well.
Okay.
Oh, thanks.
You're welcome.
So G U S M.
Yep, enter, yep.
And then we'll just give QWERTY 21 a go. QWERTY21. So that's all the tabs opening up.
Yep. Got that far.
Oh, right. So I thought you said you needed to sign in.
No, but we like clicked on here. This didn't. Was
Yes,
that supposed to work?
Yeah, so that's his Gus and his password.
Yep.
Maybe he hasn't saved it.
No, probably it hasn't.
Okay. Okay, but it's just it can't be. If he saves it, then here. Sorry about that. Excellent. Yeah, no worries. All right, okay. Yeah, no worries. Okay, so we should be timing and recording any differences between both devices.
To get into study letter, type on study letter.
Yeah.
Okay, question.
Yes.
Can you not do what you've just done on there on one of these?
No.
Why?
This is the whole conversation.
Yeah, but why?
This
Just
is
talk
a
me through this.
okay. This okay.
I've
This is
got that
this
as
is a device
Yes.
that is designed for sharing. Okay.
Yeah.
So 8 seconds from one child to another.
Yes.
This is a device that's to be owned by a single person.
Right.
It's not designed to be shared.
So
So MacBooks are great. That's why I've got one. There's nothing better. But for a school situation where you've got lots of flux and lots of kids coming and going and difficulty and low literacy, this is too complex.
we can't have tabs at the top open on a MacBook Air that you can just click on that tab and it brings it up to the sign-in page.
You can,
Yes.
but it relies on the child. Is this yours or?
Yes, it relies
Okay.
on signing in
No,
and
it's-
signing out.
Yeah, and the kids will not sign out and they won't be able to sign in because they have to go here,
Yes.
and they don't know to do that.
Right.
Then they have to type the whole email address,
So you're trying
Witherlea,
to take that away.
.school, and he won't spell that properly, probably. And then he'll do QWERTY 21, and then he will be signed in, but then he will have to close down Chrome, and then he will have to open it again, and then the tabs may appear. So
Okay.
as you can see, it's so many
clunkier.
steps.
It is clunkier.
It's so many steps.
It is clunkier, but it is doable because I do.
But why are you
But what's the
making them do it?
advantage?
Why? Because I didn't know any other way existed. And also, it teaches them how to spell their names and about the real world of passwords and getting into different.
Does it?
Well, I have to. Do you have to? When you sign in, do you not put in passwords and things?
But my question would be, why are you using it? Are you using it to teach them to sign in, or are you using it for them to learn?
Well, I'm doing probably both because they've never been exposed to a computer. Because I've got like little children that have probably never been
So
on.
why do they have those only in primary and intermediate schools?
Not sure.
Because they're changing those all the time though, aren't they?
So like Marlborough boys,
Actually, no, we don't want those.
Marlborough boys.
Who's saying that?
Who's saying that?
There's
Who's
not.
saying that?
There's not.
Marlborough boys are saying
But
not.
those
No,
secondary
forget
schools-
Marlborough.
I get that.
Yeah.
I'm just.
So you're saying
questioning.
because you're an adult and you have to function like this, then you're
How are we going?
make it.
What did we discover?
I've signed in, I've signed out a minute 50.
Okay, and what was it before?
It was a long time before, but our internet wasn't connected.
That's right. Yeah. But you can see the number of steps in this, and then they have to sign out again, and then the tabs don't. It's a major workup.
We put lots of stuff about signing and sync. I put lots of jargon about finding, putting on sync and turning
Right.
on things.
Okay.
But we did think that for us, three sitting here, we found this easier because we're used to this. This is our bread and
But-
butter, whereas
yes.
we don't pick up Chromebooks.
Okay, but for a child in your class.
Yeah,
No,
so if we're
absolutely,
thinking of
Yeah,
very
yeah.
confusing.
Cool. Great recording, Ange. We got paragraphs happening over there. How's it looking here?
Sorry, I didn't have a laptop. I do actually really think it's a good idea.
You do what,
I
sorry?
do think it's a great idea. I'm really looking forward to my kids having it.
Great. Cool. It's smoother on-ramp.
There's so much messing around that can
There
go
is.
wrong.
Yes.
And the thing is, the kids don't
Sorry.
always tell you. 10 minutes, 15, 20 minutes later, you notice someone sat in the corner of the room and they've still not signed in.
I know.
And they didn't tell you.
But signing into a MacBook involves many steps, because it has to create the Chrome profile, and then it has to be shut down, then it has to be opened again to get the default tabs, whereas with a Chromebook they just sign in and everything comes in one hit.
This is what your kids need to do.
No.
This is why
No.
you haven't seen it yet.
Are they similar to you? Yep.
Okay. Not now, but in a minute. That's what teachers say. Not now, but in a minute. I'm going to ask for one bit of feedback from each group about what they've discovered by comparing both things. So the recorder in each group, think about the most important thing you've come up with. And I'll come back to you in just a few seconds.
But for now, you can get onto their room, connect exactly the password, and at home instead.
I can see it that our little kids, like the little ones, you know, I think sometimes they're older, looking on them and learning about passwords and stuff. I don't know.
But how do they learn about what's learning about passwords? What you mean, don't save them?
No, well, yeah.
Is that something you know as a rule? Or
Well, we've been teaching that for years, because that's what
we've been teaching wrong? Yeah, but you don't. Yeah, but you're misunderstanding. You don't share passwords with the person, but you carry your passwords with you as a signature. I've got about 10,000 platforms I have to get on. So the other thing I do is put it in a notebook. That's what you're going to teach me to do? Don't share it, but write it in a notebook when the technology's there to carry through. So, can I give you an example?
But that's the era of it. I know we've gone through the era here, like I know teachers, when we first did things, and they had on their desktop a page, and it was called passwords.
Yeah.
And it was everything there. But things have changed. But again,
Things have changed now, so the kids save their password. So the moment they open, they don't actually have to enter anything to get onto Study Lab, to get onto Active Learning, to get onto all the different platforms that they're going to get onto their learning. All of them are with them, at home and at school. But because we're working on this, guess what? They don't save their passwords because a lot of the times someone else is jumping on it and they open up and there's all their passwords. So we're teaching them ways to say, hey, this is the thing that
Okay. We're going to start with the quietest group up here. So what's the biggest reflection, Ange, that you guys have come up with? And listening to each other, because that will be good.
Well, we thought that the MacBooks were faster, but we liked using the Chromebooks because they were easier to get into. They were a lot more simple. We found on the MacBooks when we went in as a student, first of all, we didn't know where student profile was. Jargon came up about turning on your sync, about turning on your setting up a profile, so you had to click through all that before you even got to where you wanted to go. We didn't know how to sign in, so we had to ask Kelsey how to sign in on MacBook as a student. Whereas the Chromebook did take a little bit longer, but it was easier to use.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Matt's group.
So in the same thing with the speed, lots of waiting time with the Chrome.
Yes.
But this was way faster. But obviously then this one was easier because it came up with all the tabs and
Yeah.
the password's already in. This one didn't come up with anything.
Yes. So you're completely flying blind. Thanks, Phoebe.
Same, but we had a question which we've just had a really good discussion about.
Yes.
I had a question, it was my question, about how can a MacBook not have the same capability of opening up all your tabs? But it doesn't save like all your passwords and everything, and you've got to log, you've got to sign out and sign back in every time.
So here's the thing. Let's go through this one stage at a time. This is a really valuable conversation, and thanks for your question.
I just wanted to know because
'Cause
I agree these were faster at loading.
Okay.
No,
So
that's
first thing, let's go through it stage by stage. So currently at this school, Chromebooks are slower. to sign on, but they are bomb-proof because it gets to where you want to go instantly. The reason they are slower is because there are significant issues with your Wi-Fi, okay, which Stella is working on. So in every other school I work in across New Zealand and everywhere in Blenheim, they have all got Chromebooks and they all work instantly. Yours are just a bit laggy here. It's not, you haven't got faulty devices, you've got a slow Wi-Fi which is going to be fixed. Does that make sense? Second thing is, so Naomi is absolutely correct. You can set up multiple profiles on each MacBook, but then you have to put names or numbers on each one. So this is these 4 kids. Yeah. And that can work. But the bottom line is, so I'm not saying don't use MacBooks. I'm saying if you do use MacBooks, do what Naomi's done and make sure that each child has got a profile so that whatever Naomi has decided she wants to open for all her kids will work. That's fine.
What did you do? Was it the same? Could they only use a specific machine?
Yeah, they
Yeah.
use their own machine, and then this year, the way we've started it is we've got our low ones have a sticker on their laptop, and
Yeah.
that's what they'll
Yeah. So the only downside of that, apart from the kid being tied to one machine, is that there is issues with security. So it means it's one click for a child to go into Phoebe's email and to send a nasty email, you know, to Matt, and then she's not accountable for it. So it's breaking a whole lot of... So the bottom line is that this thing costs $300, this thing costs $1,300. This thing is designed to be shared. It's completely maintenance-free, it's unbreakable. This thing is a one-to-one device. These are designed just like you've got one. You've got your cellular laptops. So there's nothing wrong with this. I've got one, and there's nothing wrong with this. It's the purpose to which we're putting them at this school. And again, it's just we're discovering opportunities and we're discovering ways to do things better. It makes me feel like weeping when I go into a classroom in term 3 or term 4 and I can see 5 kids 20 minutes in and they still haven't signed in. And these are the kids who need to be accelerated.
Oh, that makes us feel like weeping too.
Yes, so let's do something about it. Let's do something about it. One of the things that's a wee bit upside down at the school is that the children with the lowest cognitive ability are the youngest, and the kids with the oldest have got the highest. So you'd think that the kids with the lowest cognitive ability would have the easiest devices, and you'd think that the oldest kids who could manage multiple profiles and all that stuff would have these ones, but it's the other way around here. Yeah. Yeah. Good. Great. So we're going to move on. This is a really good conversation, and I'm glad that we're actually sort of untangling some of things that maybe weren't quite secure in people's minds. With passwords, what we should be doing is forcing, or incentivizing children to save their usernames and passwords. Okay? It is really, really, really important that they do that because they just need to be able to go straight on. Okay? So if one of our strategies is to scaffold learning for kids, part of scaffolding is make sure they just pick up a device and they do their mahi rather than spending 10 minutes feeling shit about themselves, getting angry and spinning out. That's not a healthy, sustainable behavior. Okay, moving on.
Can I just say too, the other thing is sharing passwords with somebody is different to saving passwords on your own laptop. And the reason why we get really good at it is because it is our own, so it is uber safe.
Yeah.
People have to sign in. I've got 2-step authentication because I get a text if I'm ever signed out. So you can make it safe, but I don't share a password with someone.
Yeah.
But saving is all good.
Well said. Well done. When we're teaching our kids to ride a bike, we give them training wheels first. So the training wheels here is they save their passwords to Chrome, where it's encrypted and safe. And by the way, if they are home for being sick or being in lockdown or whatever, all those passwords and apps and everything follow them when they add a profile onto mum's laptop or whatever it might be. Okay, this is sustainable and it's less stress for us. God, how awful is it to be in a classroom with kids not signing in? Okay, next thing. Task 3. This is on your own laptops, please. So on your own laptops, can you create a Google Doc? This should take more than 90 seconds to a minute. I want you to create a Google Doc and write about what the highlight of your recent summer holiday was. Just 2 sentences.
You do know that on Cara the kids don't have to share with us, don't you?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know that I think I know what you're trying to do here.
Yes. No, it's not a...
And I get that, but
It's-
you know that you can,
Yes, of course, of course, of course.
so they don't have to share it
Yeah.
with us because it's, we,
I really get that. I'm just comparing 2 extremes.
I think it's great to have a conversation about whether Kapara is better than your classroom, but that wouldn't be a fair comparison.
Now, Catherine, you might have had an email inviting you into a Google Classroom. Is that possible? What's that?
Yeah, I had one of those as well.
No, but Catherine hasn't joined the classroom. Would you have noticed an email, Catherine? Or if you open Google Classroom, it might be there for you. Okay, 30 seconds left. What are you doing?
I'm shooting a photo.
Oh my God.
Is that not how you do it? Aren't you?
No, it'll work, it'll work,
I
it'll
haven't
work.
been having one-on-one sessions with
Well,
my
it's time you
Doesn't
did.
matter, that's fine. You've just gone above, it's fine.
It's perfect.
That's the way I did it.
Okay, 10 seconds left. Even if you just write, I went on holiday, it was great. Yeah.
You know I can do it, you know, so.
Okay. Right. Okay. Right, could we just have a bit of a pause, please? Now, during the summer, when I was on holiday, we were at a campsite, and has anyone shared any stuff with me? Oh, here we go. So here's the thing. We were on holiday, and we'd sailed somewhere, we were camping, and my son was talking to another family, and I came over, and he said to them, "This is my dad, he exaggerates for a living," okay? So this is why I am doing this. I'm exaggerating the extremes of kids manually sharing documents with teachers. That's at one extreme. And the other extreme is using a system to take care of all that sort of admin. Okay? So if I open up, the first thing to notice is that all of these documents show up in Shared with Me, which is a place of absolute chaos. Have you noticed that? The second thing is that because you're all children, and a third of you are low literacy, most of the documents are called untitled documents. Have you noticed that? Of course you do.
Well, we have to.
Yeah, of course. Okay.
The process. If I walk around here, I'm like, no.
Okay, so here's the thing. Files and folders are things from last century. Your children have never used a filing cabinet before, and they probably never will. They are living in a web-enabled world where documents are not things, they are links. A bunch of photos is not a bunch of attachments. That's in our old paradigm from the 90s. A bunch of photos is now a link. A video before was a great big bit of data that was on a memory stick or something. Now it's a link in YouTube. So for many adults, changing this sort of thinking from filing cabinet thinking from last century, where we've got stuff in my documents and we send attachments and we can't find stuff, to a web-enabled way of thinking where everything is just a link, is part of this transition. What is particularly painful and confusing for people is when they're straddling both systems. It's a bit like when you pick up a hire car or borrow your mate's car and the indicators and wipers on the wrong side. So even though you're a great driver, you drive out of the car park with the wipers going really quickly and you're not indicating as you go into traffic. So if we're using both systems, we're not getting the best out of either. Does that make sense? So, first thing is that when kids share stuff with me, it shows up in Shared With Me, which is a place of chaos, because I can't find the document 2 weeks from now, 4 weeks from now, 6 months from now. And it is incredibly difficult to give them feedback, because everything has to be manually typed, and then I have to email them back again, and then there's a lot of friction and time wasting when things are done this way. Okay? So what Google Classroom does is it takes away all that pain, and it means that the child is focused on the work, not the process behind the work. Because once again, the kids at the bottom end of your bell curve who are most penalized by all of these processes. Regardless of which sensory it is, Andrea should be able to walk into any classroom and say, what are you learning? Why are you learning it? And how will you know if you've learned it? Really good questions. And nowadays, she should be able to add on to that, what difference is this thing making? And if the kid says motorbikes or fashion, as an answer, then we're not really getting up onto the higher ground here. So, if you all go into Google Classroom, please, so the classroom we're looking for is PLD and Research Hub, and look at your neighbour's screen just to make sure everyone is on. And you will see that there is a task there, and it's called My Summer Holiday or something like that. Is that right? Mm-hmm. And you will see that your teacher has scaffolded a document for you. Okay? Because one of the other things that is really, really painful in our classrooms, and again, it's particularly disadvantageous to our bottom-end kids, is that I might have you all sitting on the mat, I might go through the expectations on the whiteboard, I might tell you 3 times I want full sentences, but by the time those kids have got behind the screen, they're not retaining that. So you'll notice in the document, the instructions are baked in. Can everyone see that? Are we not in the classroom yet?
I am in the classroom.
Yeah, so just, where are we at? So it should say...
Oh, there, found it.
Yeah. Now, so that's the first thing I want you to notice. Second thing is that it's scaffolded so the child can see completion. But more importantly than that, which is not possible with any of the other ways of having documents go back and forward, if you could just look at the screen just for a moment, just for 4 seconds, okay? You will see that I have made a rubric that is really, really simple. Rubrics traditionally have been teacher tools that she uses at the end of the process. And she sits at home on a Sunday night and goes, please use full sentences, etc. Wouldn't it be great if the rubric was up front in student language so they could actually do a better job from the outset? So you're all going to be doing this, and this is what these bottles of wine are for. So, got your attention all of a sudden. So, if you answer the first question really well, you can get up to 2 points. If you add an appropriate, underlined, appropriate photo, you get 2 points. If you give at least 2 reasons and use the word because in each reason, you can get 4 points. And if you click on turn in instead of share, you get 2 points. So there's no reason why each of you, we've all been to university, there's no reason why each of us can't get 10 points. Shall we give it a go? How many minutes do we need to complete this task to a very high standard? Do you need to know how to get a photo, Catherine? All right.
Be a photo?
Pardon?
So it had to be a photo, did it?
Yes, in the document, if you go to Google Classroom, you see it's got, hang on, if you go back to that previous tab, and you just go insert image rather than, you don't need to go to a separate tab.
So just, can you ask Martin that? 'Cause
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
a great question. She said, once it's turned in though, you can't edit it. Is that right?
So it's just like, it's just like an exercise book. So when I collect in my kids' exercise book, they lose editing rights.
Yep.
But when I return it to them, they can follow up my feedback.
But if you don't get time to edit, just grab your book and I'll just put it on side.
Yeah,
But you have to
I
flip
mean,
through.
I can do everything that you've done here.
Yes.
Just to see the advantages of Google Classroom, I can do everything you've done here.
Yeah.
I can shut this task out to them,
Yes.
but they can, you know how children have this annoying habit they do on Seesaw, and
Yes.
I love Seesaw actually.
Yes.
They submit, it's so annoying, and then I'm really busy, and we're all working, and
Yes.
now they can't carry on and do any more, even though they should have done this and they should have done this, because
Yes.
I've now got to go in, I've got to send it back to them.
Can I come? Can you ask me that question in 5 minutes' time? If I forget,
Yeah.
because I'll deal with it then. It's a very good question. Thanks, Naomi.
It doesn't put me off.
It's a
doesn't
great
put me
question.
off Seesaw because I think it's brilliant,
But
but
I actually
it is
think it's a-
very irritating.
It's a great question.
I
I'll
actually
come
think
to it.
it's a really good question because it's happened to me as well.
Yeah.
Edison on
No,
Seesaw.
when they've submitted it in, but they may need it edited,
Yeah.
and you're in the middle of things,
Okay.
but they can't carry on.
I'll deal with it in just a couple of minutes.
The work's
What's
not
that, sorry?
quite right,
I don't have a copy that's
but
got
they
my
need
name
feedback.
there.
No, it's because you're a teacher.
So Martin's
Because you know
gonna
you're an
ask
assessor. I should have made that clear. Sorry.
You share someone's stuff, or you look at one and you suddenly
Hey, Naomi. Just by the way, have you? Well, hang on. Have you turned yours in?
no.
Okay. Watch what happens. Just click on turn in and pretend you've done it.
Cool.
Okay. You can click on submit.
So then I don't have to send
Exactly.
it back. They can.
Exactly.
can
This is
go,
managing self.
You better unsubmit that word fast,
Yeah.
because it ain't done.
So I can quickly, without, if you haven't opened it, I
Yeah.
can quickly
Yes,
unsubmit it.
because I can come around and I can say to you, mate, is that really your best,
I always
Larissa?
used to think about that with emails.
Do you really want to be out? Do you want to be outside at lunchtime or inside?
Okay. Please.
Well, it depends on your recorder. Are you giving your recorder good messages?
Yes, because it's a sensitive one in the share. Yeah, I like this part. She knows my
Right. Now, let's just have a look. Okay, there's just 2 more to hand in. Now, is that the right number? It is. Okay. In 1 minute from now, I'm going to ask Ariana to mark her students' work. And I'm going to ask Matt to mark his students' work, please. And we're going to ask Kelsey to mark her students' work. Okay?